Hello dear friends, I'm glad to welcome everyone watching Sotnik-TV this moment. It's January 11th, 2020. The Moscow time is 7 p.m. sharp. Let's get to the news now. The main story for today is Iran accepting the fact of Ukrainian Airlines plane hit by Iranian air defense. Ukrainian plane that crashed by Tehran this week. Let me quote, "That was moving too close to a sensitive military facility and was downed. A human factor was the reason, according to the quote by Iran General Military Headquarters. According to the declaration, US military planes' activity increased several hours after the missile deployment, and some raiders received the warning of airstrikes against country strategic centers and numerous objects. That increased the sensitivity of anti-aircraft units," Iran military headquarters state. Those were some critical conditions under which plane 752 of Ukrainian Airlines took off from Imam Khomeini Airport, and due to the rotation mode that got in close proximity to IRGC sensitive military center, having the height and shape of an enemy plane. The shape of an enemy plane, you know? Under such conditions, the plane was accidentally hit due to a human mistake that unfortunately led to the death of compatriots and a number of foreign citizens, the document states. Iran is promising to find those guilty in the plane downing. And here's the opinion given to our program by Alexander Sotnik, an expert and an observer. Let's listen to him next. As for me, those 176 Boeing passengers that were hit by Iranian anti-aircraft system on the day of Iranian attack against the US military base became the hostages of the geopolitical ambitions by Iranian regime. That really reminds the 2014 story when 298 Malaysian plane passengers became the hostages of Russian ambitions. That demonstrates that even though you have nothing to do with politics, get into the area of responsibility of an aggressor country, that may be Russia or Iran or Northern Korea or some other country, gives you no warranty that after taking off on your way, you won't be hit with Russian missile. At the same time, we need to know that after taking the responsibility, Iran got in a row of those civilized countries, such as the US and Ukraine, that had hit airplanes by mistake as well. Even the USSR had to accept hitting South Korean plane at the time, while Russia haven't. That makes today's declaration by Iran a sensation, pushing Russia into isolation. That is some unique isolation, as Russia is becoming some special outcast country, the only country denying its responsibility for accidental missile hit. Meant for Ukrainian transport plane. In any case, that is a military crime from its side. Hitting a civilian airplane doubles the crime. So Iran doesn't wish to get isolated totally, as hanging on that string by the very edge, it is still trying to prove being a part of the global community. Take a look at the comments by Russian authorities, criticizing Iran right away. That is something amazing, yet demonstrating Kremlin understanding the situation that has gotten into. After Iran acceptance, Russia is no longer some aggressor, not just some military criminal, but some unique military criminal denying its military crimes. Regarding the situation over Iran, we need to realize that Ukrainians and the citizens of the rest of the countries that got killed in that catastrophe as the result of Iran trying to dominate in the region, with no legal right for that. Why was that infamous missile launched? Because Iranians thought to save face with their own people and to hold that decorative US military bases attack. As the US Air Force had terminated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani several days prior to that. According to the common opinion that Soleimani was not only the old enemy for the US, but also for the rest of the civilized world. So why doesn't Russia confess when Iran does? Russia has more ways of pressure to global community. How does it differ from Iran? There is only one thing, a nuclear weapon. As an American general once said, no one would care about Russia if not for the nuclear weapon. The presence of the nuclear weapons means the possibility of threatening the world's existence. That allows Russia to deny that all. Iran can't allow itself such tactics due to the absence of nuclear weapons. And now we see why Donald Trump, just like those American presidents before him, insists on keeping nuclear weapons from Iran by any means. Any country that gets nuclear weapons stops being an outcast, that is regarded and gets away with any war crime. When Northern Korea got nuclear weapons, Donald Trump ran to curry favor with that. So until Iran owns nuclear weapons, Trump doesn't ingratiate with that, killing Iranian general instead. I wonder, would they kill Qasem Soleimani if Iran possessed some nuclear weapons? And what if they hit Ukrainian on some other airplane during that? Would Iran have accepted its fault in such case? I highly doubt that. That was the opinion by Alexander Sotnik, an observer. Here's what I tell you. That paradoxical confession with excuse elements is some familiar rhetoric by criminal regimes. Like, why have you taken that flight at all? Don't you know how unsettling it is over here? Don't you know they are shooting over here? You shouldn't have flown. There was that sly phrase regarding the human factor. That sounds like some hazing. Some insane apes armed with grenades and missiles appear to be influenced by some human factor and may launch by mistake. Actually, as far as I know, and that may turn wrong, according to the contract, missile units Tor M1 are supplied by Russian military. So Russian soldiers maintain those. Not Iranians, but Russian military. Once that is true and taken as a basis, that explains a lot. Why that catastrophe was felt so painful by Moscow. They're used to deny that all to the end, to stand their ground, to suggest some absurd versions, simply lying and failing to admit, to throw a fit, blaming anyone up to the victims. Do you remember MH17 Malaysian plane hit? They even yelled that the plane was flying initially filled with corpses. That was hit by Ukraine in order to blame Russian afterwards. That was some incredibly insane gibberish, broadcasted with those rectangular hate emitters called TV sets in Russia. Yet Iran has confessed as further denial could lead to some serious consequences. In fact, Iran does not possess nuclear weapons. So when the UK, Canada and the US announced they possessed the data of 2 missiles hit the plane, Iran got scared and stopped denying. That was some florid way to confess, shifting a part of the responsibility. And that was the call for Putin's senators and the devil's advocates. Let me quote the head of the Federation Council Foreign Affairs Committee, that Mr. Kosachev opened his spy hole and moved his snout. Quote, that accident became possible under the conditions of real danger of American strikes. Repeat, this time on the territory of Iran. Even though that is not an excuse for the mistake. Once the flight recordings, decryption and further investigation don't prove the premeditation of Iranian military actions, as there are no logical reasons for that. That incident needs to be closed at that point. End of quote. Here's what I have to say to Kosachev, that mustached imp. In order to return him the sense of empathy that characterizes those reflexive people, but seems to be long gone from dehumanized individuals like Kosachev. What if your children were on that plane? I wonder, would you declare the same? Using the same words. The incident needs to be closed. So that was not a murder for you, with almost 200 victims, but some incident, like shit happens. What if your evil head is cut off and then we say, that was an accident, sorry. And since the mistake has been accepted, the case needs to be closed now. People's life ended forever, Kosachev. They had plans for tomorrow. They were planning on their arrival. But their tomorrow never came. Everything ended up for them. Do you realize that? They've been through some horrible tortures. And their friends and families got into some pitch-dark hell. And mourning. That is some real hell, you, Kosachev. Is that some incident for you, you Kremlin bastard? I won't wish you anything, as I don't want to be like dehumanized you. Just remember that a boomerang always returns. That certainly does. I give you 100% on that one, and your case is no exception. So we have celebrated the new year. I hope everyone is alive and haven't abused anything. I hope there are no consequences of that celebration. And you weren't spoiled with nothing harmful. So let's move into 2020 with new energy. The energy is something you'll need a lot. The reason is simple. The year is going to be really difficult. It's going to be bad. You can't even imagine how bad that will get. I'm not trying to scare you. I wish you get some relief this year. I wish you stopped being afraid. I wish you took some free breath and had more oxygen and more information. I wish you weren't afraid. Yet unfortunately that fear is to be escalated. And not by me. The madness of victory is to be escalated as well. The regime will keep telling you about new enemies around, as they are holding on to power. Remember me saying that fear, ignorance and poverty were the 3 bases for that regime that has already become the dictatorship of the camp administration. Russia was turned into prison camp. Unfortunately, you are the inmates of that prison. And the relationship between you and the regime is like between inmates and prisoners. I feel terribly sorry, but we all have contributed into that. So I guess some critical events are coming. And 2020 will sure bring those events closer and mark those with dashed line. Take care of yourselves, of your friends, family and relatives. Save your strength, as you will really need that. Take care of your hearts and souls. See you live on Sotnik-TV.